So you sit here and make sure that no one else.
No problem. No, it's really technical. Okay. I'm sitting there.
Okay.
You will do that.
Ik hou het al zo lang uit. Thank you.
Hello everyone. If I could kindly ask everyone to please sit down because we're going to start. Thank you very much. Welcome to everyone. We do expect a little bit more people still. I know they are in Brussels, so they should arrive shortly. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for having taken the effort to come to Brussels, to our event. We also hope that this day, apart from looking at presentations, is also a day that you do lots of networking. Because if you look at the list that we have provided to each one of you, there are people from all of Europe, but also beyond. So I don't think David is here, but there are also people coming over from Qatar. And I had a nice dinner with them, so I know that they're going to join us. But let's not further delay the start of the event. My name is Karel van Zetten. I'm the coordinator of the ViPi ATLEC project. You will see me running around a little bit hectic, but it's a bit stressful day for me. Before we start, I would like to shortly explain security issues, and I mean in case of fire or anything. You had the entrance port through which everyone entered the building. That's the place in case of fire or in case of any other problem. Move to that area and go to the street. And then on the street there will be a person who will then bring you to a specific meeting point. So problems, you're not there in the lobby on the street. That's the best way. If you're in the back of the building because you went to the toilet, you will see an exit sign. Follow the exit sign and believe it or not, you end up back in the lobby. Accessible toilets are here in the corridor. Go to the end, turn to the left, and there you will find the toilets for female and male persons, and then also the accessible toilets just behind. And I think that's all. I would like to give the floor to Jan.
Thank you very much, Karel. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear member of the Flemish Parliament, my name is Jan Buijsen. I'm the director of VLEVA, the Flemish or the liaison agency Vlaams-Europe, and I welcome you all at our premises. VLEVA, I may hear you think, what is VLEVA and where are we now? Well, allow me to present ourselves very shortly. VLEVA has been set up almost 7 years ago. It is based on a public-private partnership model between the Flemish government, local government representatives and civil society organizations. The Knowledge Center Social Europe is one of our 26 members. Now, what do we do? Well, we support the Europeanization of our members and of governments. We collaborate in this very closely with the PermRep, or the Flemish representation within the permanent representation of Belgium to the EU, which actually officially represents Flanders and the Flemish government in the EU. Now, how do we do this exactly, this Europeanization of civil society organizations and of local government representatives? Well, we do that by taking on 4 key tasks. The first of it is the one of monitoring. We filter and analyze EU policy documents for useful information for our members. And our most important instrument for this is our Dutch website, the organization of many information sessions that we do yearly. We have a newsletter. We also have an EU job database, and we have a very important funding database in which we all collect all calls for proposals that are published by the EU institutions. That's the monitoring part. And the second task is the one of building bridges. We constantly build bridges within Flanders, but also outside Flanders. I think today is also, with the cooperation of our main partners, a very good example. We build bridges with European partners and institutions, and that's, of course, the absolute foundation for a proper exchange and information promotion of interest of Flanders. Promoter of interests, that's our third key task, and let us put this very promptly. From the side of VLEVA, we are not representing our interests directly to the EU institutions, but we support our members in doing so. Actually, we try to professionalize their EU lobbying, their EU interest representation towards the EU. And we make sure, how do we do it? Well, we make sure that the right information on EU affairs is received by the right persons at the right time, actually. And then our last key task is the one of contact point, office, hotline, if I may say so. We give guidance free of charge on European initiatives, state of play, state of affairs on that, European funding, EU jobs, and we facilitate specific contacts with experts from the EU administration and from other regions represented here in Brussels. So, very briefly, if you're looking for a Flemish expert, or you would like to work with us or Flemish partners, or do you want to spread your partner search actually within Flanders, well, just please contact our VLEVA team. Actually, that's all I want to say to you. For the rest, I would like to wish you a very fruitful event. I've seen the agenda, I've seen the list of participants. I think it has everything in it to be very interesting. I thank you very much, and I wish you a very fruitful event. Thank you very much.
So, the first session that we have prepared is a session on increased independence for people with disabilities. And we thought there would not be a better person to chair this session than Jean-Marie. Jean-Marie Van Over has a quite extensive background in the area of disability, also in the area of assistive technologies. I can also call him, I think, a very personal, very good friend. And we have been working the past few years on a couple of initiatives. Jean-Marie has also been contributing to quite some of the projects that will be presented here. In this respect, based on his knowledge that he has in the field, Jean-Marie has also succeeded in bringing us together with some other key players in the market, can we say. And that is actually to the benefit of also the work that we have been doing with various initiatives. So, without further continuing on this, Jean-Marie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Carl. What a nice presentation, Carl. Thank you very much. Thank you also for being invited. Carl has prepared the slide with my two lives. I have a former life and I have a present life. But the transfer from the former life to the actual one has passed very, very needless, because a lot has to do in both sides with inclusion and assistive technology. The ATLEC project, I was very happy to be involved in it, because it deals with a unified and validated curriculum to train, and that is the focus which attracted me, to train the persons with disabilities in the use of ICT and AT, to train the persons themselves. Because in our experience, not much training is organized for the people with disability themselves. And I hope, and I'm sure, that the valorization of the curriculum will go for a qualification and accreditation system, and the project, the curriculum and handbook and other deliverables will be very interesting, in my opinion, and necessary for the development of new study programs and standard packages, as well in handicap specific systems or environments as in, let's say, inclusive ones. but we can ask some why questions. Why is assistive technology needed? I think for most of you it's clear because we are all working, and most of you are working in that field. I've chosen the general definition of the International Classification of Functioning, which says that assistive technology is there to remove limitations in activity in specific domains, but with the objective, and that is essential, to enable people with disabilities to participate independently in society. But why training is needed in the use of assistive technology? Because first time, as I said, there's not much training organized for the moment for people with disabilities themselves. What is organized is, let's say, professionals are experiencing with what comes on the market. Difficulty is to keep pace with the developments in technology. And necessary certainly because insufficient user competence, I think it's evident, reduces the benefits of the technology. Maybe most important is that the assistive technology is too complex to be used behind, maybe because it's not enough on the mainstream market. It's a niche market. But then why train the people with disabilities themselves? Because studies show that only a small part of impaired people use assistive technology. I've chosen here an inquiry of the measurement of the accessibility of 2008, where that says that only 27% of visually impaired people count on assistive technology. That statement has already been done by Patrick Rowe in his publication Bridging the Gap in 2001, where he says that the lack of specialized user support is the single biggest barrier to the take-up of new technology. Important is what do people with disability need? They need an individualized support. And on top, furthermore, most of the times their social network, family carers, are not trained or not aware enough of the very specific assistive technology. So a well-trained user of ICT AT does not depend on other people and may become a customer instead of user. It's a whole difference. May become an employee, may become an expert. Okay? Then we talk about employability. But in fact, it's a matter of rights. Training people with disabilities comply with the actual paradigm of self-determination and empowerment. I said that the most people with disabilities are users, not customers, because in most of the time they are not involved or hardly involved in the choice and provision of assistive technology. There are several international European policies mentioning the story of rights, for people with disabilities. For instance, Digital Agenda Europe talks about digital competence as a requirement and as a right. But on top, I think most well known and most important maybe is the UN Convention for the rights for people with disabilities. And the first session is dealing with that. With the title Independence, we will have two presentations. The first one on the EU disability policy. The consortium, ATLEC consortium, Carlo had invited Mrs. Immaculada Plasencia Porera, well known, I think, deputy head of the unit, unit rights for persons with disability. But as she had other commitments, she asked Carlo to give her presentation, and he has promised to do that, to try to do it as charming as Mrs. Plasencia Porera does. And then the second presentation will be by Mrs. Helga Stevens on more independence, let's say, the situation in Flanders. Mrs. Stevens is member of Flemish Parliament since 2004, is for the NVA, the Nieuwe Vlaamse Alliantie, New Flemish Alliance, and she is member of Senate since 2007, We all know her in Flanders as really, to say it sympathetic, a fighter for disability matters. She has already realized a lot. So I propose to give the floor to Karl. Oh, it's the end of the presentation. I propose to continue immediately afterwards with Mrs. Stevens, and then there will be some time for questions. Thank you.
Yes, exactly as Jean-Marie said, I have the very nice task to represent Immaculada. Those that know Immaculada, she's a very sweet person. I hope I am as sweet as she is. I went to her presentation because this was last minute changed. I think it was in the course of last week actually that she requested me to do her presentation. And I think we all know that in this week there is the European Day of People with Disabilities, 3rd of December, so that was yesterday. In addition, there is a big event taking place here in Brussels. Unfortunately, people from the European Commission a year ago did not know that they would organize it these days. So that's why there is a duplication of the agenda. In any case, I will do an effort. So her presentation is on EU disability policy. And the question is here, why do we actually need the EU disability policy? Because, okay, there is quite some disability policies, sorry. There are quite some disability policies that are organized on a national level, so by the member states. However, the issue is that there are similar concerns for people with disabilities across Europe. There are also a number of policies and legislation on the EU level that do impact people with disabilities directly. So starting from that, that's why they also want to have the disability policy at the EU level. I think one of the striking examples is, for example, accessible transport when you use an airplane. This is obviously pushed from the EU level. These are a number of articles. I kindly invite you to read them when you have the time, but this is the number of articles that form the legal basis. And the legal basis is often based on combat discrimination. For example, also in the Belgian legislation, in the Greek legislation, there are not necessarily specific articles that say for people with disabilities. They talk about non-discriminating, and then they squeezed disability, as is often the case. These are a number of other articles on the internal market, transport, I said it before, so air transport, social policy, education, public health, etc. But also, for example, the legislation that they have about e-procurement, where now they have pushed for, when there is e-procurement, that the platform that is being used, that is fully accessible. An important element for the EU is, of course, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The rights in this convention are actually addressing a number of issues. They talk about accessibility, employment, education, health, independent living, participation in culture, sport, civil rights. I think these are all fields that when we look at our daily life, work with people with disabilities, working with people with disabilities, we recognize those fields. We recognize that in those fields there is indeed need to support the rights of people with disabilities. There are the members, EU members, etc., that have to ratify that convention, so that also means that they will have to comply with the obligations to ensure that the rights that are recognized in the convention are being applied. This is not always done in a very straightforward manner by the member states, as you all know. But this is at least the intention. This is also what the EU pushes member states to do. Now, I think this is an important thing that is being mentioned here, and this is also across the board in all the presentations. Where in the last few years we have to have that paradigm shift, whereby we stop talking about charity, and we actually talk about rights. And I mean there active involvement of people with disabilities, empowerment. So instead of, and I don't target the UK people here present, but in the UK there's a very big tradition of charity. Throw them some money because of the poor. This actually originates from the First World War, as you all know. Sheltered workshops, for example, here in in Flanders were actually established because of the many casualties after the First World War. So it was a kind of charity approach, a medical approach. This changed actually the last few years, the last 10, 20 years, whereby we are really looking towards the right of people with disabilities. Have them involved, have them work directly, look at their competences, and have them integrate in society. Later in the presentation of Mrs. Stevens, you will see how Flanders tries to do it, to give more rights and more independence to people with disabilities. I think it's a very good presentation, and it would also enlighten you, the foreigners, the non-Flemish people, to see how we do things here in Flanders. If you look at some court data from the European Union and the United Nations Convention, then we have that the European Community signed the UN Convention on 30th of March 2007. So to be honest, it's not that long. Huh? We are talking only 6 years. So it took a long time till we realized that we had to do it. On the 26th of November 2009, there was a Council decision on the conclusion of the ratification of the Convention by the European Community. So it does take time. And on the 22nd of January 2011, there was an entry into force of the Convention for the EU. So all in all, I would say about 10 years before this really took off. I hope many of our actions that we will undertake on a daily level will not take 10 years, because it would create a lot of problems, I think. EU Declaration of Competences. So there are a number of competences that either are exclusive, kept for the EU. This addresses state aids, common customs tariffs, and public administration. On the other hand, there are a number of shared competences. This is, of course, directly addressing what parts of the convention, especially then what kind of competences are transferred from the community to its member states. So, the EU on the EU level has agreed with the convention, but it has to be actually carried out by the member states. Then there is also the European Disability Strategy that was established 2010-2020. It was adopted on 15 November 2010. There are some 3 documents that you can freely download from the internet. The first one is Communication on the European Disability Strategy, which outlines actually what is the strategy about. Then there is an initial plan to implement the strategy, so there are a list of actions, 2010-2015. And then there's a background document with facts and figures. Actually, those background, but this is a personal opinion in the presentation, those background documents are actually the most interesting, because they give lots of figures that are very useful for us, and also maybe also towards politicians, to also pass the message, guys, we see here these are not very good figures in certain aspects of disability strategy, how can we improve them? The main objectives of the aforementioned action is to empower people with disabilities to enjoy their full rights. So remember the paradigm shift. To create a barrier-free Europe for all. So we have the Europe for all that has no frontiers to transfer goods. But we obviously need to also create a Europe for all that provides access and transportation and possibilities for people with disabilities to move everywhere, to work everywhere, etc. I think this is a very important aspect if you look currently at the economic crisis in Europe, where we see people in very poor countries in Europe having basically no rights, no support. Then we see the northern European countries having a lot of rights for people with disabilities. I think this is something that we have to keep in mind nowadays as well when we look at the EU policies. And then the final objective here is to comply again with those commitments that were taken by concluding the UN Convention, as I mentioned before. There are, I think I will skip this slide. I'm going to look at the main areas for EU action. They are presented in the communication, so the list of actions that I mentioned before, for the 2010-2015. So first of all, accessibility of goods and services. So if you make use of a service, that service should be accessible to you whether you are having a disability or not. It also means, for I think a very good example is someone wants to do a job interview, he or she needs to get the support to be able to do the job interview. Even if she's blind, if he or she has a hearing impairment, if he or she has mobility impairment. Participation as equal citizen in Europe and voting community-based services. I think participation as equal citizens also means that you have to be able to participate in the local, for example, even local politics. That you're able to also give your voice to what should happen on a local level. Equality and combating discrimination. So people should not be fired because they have a disability. Let's not forget, when we think about people with disabilities, many people often make the reflex, oh, they were born like that. It's not the case. There are many acquired disabilities throughout a lifetime. Let's not forget, we have that funny rule, till we are 65, we are very lucky. If you have a disability, we are recognized as a person with disability. I will not ask who is older than 65 here, but after that, if you have disability, sorry, but you're just growing old. These are things that have a direct impact also to the support that someone can get. And this is the main reason, for example, also for discrimination. Employment in the open labor market, I addressed it already through the example. Inclusive education and training, and this is at this moment a quite extensive debate going on in Flanders about inclusive education, whether they should, I think it's Minister Snet, if I'm not mistaken, should we move it very forward, or the means there to do inclusive education? Can we bring people with disabilities directly in education? Then social protection to combat poverty. I think I addressed it already. Having lived in Greece for a long time, there are also Greeks in the room, I know that. Having lived in Greece for 12 years, I've seen also that the social protection to combat poverty is very, very poor in Greece. If you are a person with disability in Greece, pity you, but you basically have to pay everything yourself. Equal access to health service and related facilities, same issue. If you look in Europe, it's not everywhere. External action including EU enlargement, neighborhood and international development programs. Okay. There are a mix of tools to achieve these objectives. On the one hand, there is legislation. It's for example the European Accessibility Act. There is a mainstream, so that actually means good practices. Let's promote it and let's implement it everywhere. Cooperation between member states and civil society, I think this is an important one, because it's not only what happens in our own country, in our own region, but we can also learn from others. We are with a number of people here working a lot with Turkey. We have been surprised what initiatives they have in Turkey and where we could really learn from. Funding, obviously, I think this is a good example. All the projects that are presented here have benefited from funding, paid by the taxpayer. And we hope to also give that back for free to the taxpayer. Awareness raising, and I think, for example, also with the European Day of People with Disabilities is one of the main issues. And then data collection and monitoring. And then with data collection and monitoring, there is another slide later on. There are a number of online tools, and I will go directly to them actually. Who knows ANET? The initiative ANET. Who knows this here in the room? No one. So I was just, yes, you and I. So just to emphasize awareness. No one in the room knows about ANET. Okay? This is a European initiative that actually groups per country policies. What do they exactly do on accessibility? What laws are in place? The description of the various instruments. They provide links to the various sources. They provide additional links, and also they update it on a regular basis. I really suggest you have a look at it. It provides, if you want to understand how in different countries in Europe disability is addressed, then I think this is the place to go. And I kindly invite you to look at the difference between the north, south, and the east, because in some cases it's quite dramatic. The online tool addresses 34 countries, plus the European Union, and it addresses in total 43 instruments. Okay, there's a small calculation made, but more or less there are 13,000 entries. They have been made by a number of organizations, reputable organizations from various countries, and as I said, I really recommend it. This is an example where, for example, they look at different areas. Transport, can everyone see the screen very well? Yes. Okay. The transport accessibility, the built environment accessibility, and the ICT and web accessibility. Going on that, you can actually look per country what has been put in place. You can also see the gaps, what is not in place. So, as I said, I really recommend it. To conclude the presentation, there are a number of useful links where you can download material. And for those that are interested about AMET, I can give you some more details in a face-to-face chat. And I think this is the end of the presentation of Immaculada. So thank you very much for your attention. I will now put the presentation for the health.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Helma Stevens. Thank you for the invitation to give my presentation to you. Excuses if it's not going very smoothly because I'm I use Flemish Sign Language, and this has to be translated into English, so the interpreters have to make a double translation. Okay, micro works again. For this moment, you were handicapped. You had to, the micro needs to work because otherwise you couldn't hear the interpreter. For make it clear, I'm now going to tell you about the Flemish context. Not specifically on ICT, but the context in Flanders. I want to make a short history and what's the situation in Belgium and in Flanders for persons with a handicap. We work on two levels. We have the federal level and the Flemish level. I think it's interesting for you to know how the structure is here in Flanders. People with a disability have an allowance from the age of 21 till 65. There are two sorts of allowances. There is an income replacement allowance. When people, due to labor-related inability, it's not possible to go to work and they have no other means of income, they are unemployed, for example, then they can get that allowance based on classifications and based on a level of income. Otherwise, there is also an integration allowance that covers the extra costs that people with a disability have in order of in relation of their disability. If they don't have a too high income, they can get this allowance. We see in December 2009 there are approximately 60,000 people who get the allowance. Now in 2012 we can see that there are 65,000 persons getting the allowance. And half of them get both of the allowances. That means that these peoples are not going to work. They are not active. That's a very large group of people. On the other hand, we have also the children with a disability. And they get an extra benefit in order of the disability they have. There are also allowances for people, seniors, at the age more than 65, but that's out of the scope of this presentation. At Flemish level, and we focus on support we don't provide an income to these people with a disability. That's federal organized. So on Flemish level, we give support, support services, material support, and that's an open offer. Previously, we spoke about AIDS support for people with a disability, but if people want to have, for example, deaf people want to have an iPad so they can communicate because they can use FaceTime, that's very appropriate for deaf people. But the government says, no, an iPad is common good, so we don't pay it back for you in order of your handicap. So many deaf people complain if they want to go to work, they need the iPad because it is a very good aid for them. But the government says, no, you have to need to buy a special computer, which is very, very expensive, and an iPad which is cheaper can be bought with the funding of the government. That's a bit old reason that they use. It's something that can aid them, help them, but they don't allow it. On the level of support, depending on the grade of the severeness of disability, there are many you have to be handicapped before the age of 65, and then you can get registered in the agency. So they mentioned it before. When you get a disability after the age of 65, you have a problem. The government says, sorry, the law mentions the age of 65. So that's the discussion for the coming years. In the framework of the sixth reformment of the state, which some things are federal material, will go to Flanders, and Flanders will be responsible, and that will be a moment that we can use so that the agency can change its policy. But at this moment, it's a very heavy discussion because it will lead us to a great financial impact if we allow people above 65 to get recognized in the agency. People live longer, are longer active, and you can't say to people above 65, sorry, you can't be recognized. On the other hand, we have the famous waiting lists. Unfortunately, they exist. I may not speak of waiting lists, I have to say the central register of care-related questions. So these waiting lists, the agency works with a closed budget. It's not the same like on national health insurance, RISIF. If they are going to have debt, the government will bypass it. So that's the problem, the difference between them. So we get waiting lists. We do a lot of investments every year, and the waiting list is still growing. I will wait a bit.